Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're beginning with a critical development from the Kenya Meteorological Department. For the first time, Kenya Met has officially outlined the specific criteria for what constitutes a heat wave in three of the nation's major cities: Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa. This announcement, made just yesterday, February 1st, marks a significant shift from vague warnings to precise, actionable public health guidance. But what exactly defines a heat wave in the Kenyan context? And why is this formal definition so crucial now? We'll dive deep into the new thresholds, the science behind them, and what they mean for millions of urban residents. We'll also examine this announcement within a broader national context, looking at other pressing issues facing the country, from education to international controversies involving Kenyan citizens. This is a 12-minute deep dive. Let's start with the core announcement. The Kenya Meteorological Department stated that, locally, a heat wave is not defined by a single hot day. Instead, it is characterized by a sustained period of unusually high temperatures that pose a measurable risk to human health, agriculture, and infrastructure. This is a crucial distinction. A one-off hot afternoon is uncomfortable. A heat wave is dangerous. The department has now set specific temperature benchmarks that must be exceeded for at least 3 consecutive days to trigger a formal heat wave alert. For Nairobi, the threshold is set at a maximum daytime temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. For the coastal city of Mombasa, the bar is 35 degrees Celsius. And for Kisumu, on the shores of Lake Victoria, the threshold is 34 degrees Celsius. These aren't arbitrary numbers. They are based on historical climate data for each region, representing temperatures that fall within the top 10% of recorded highs for that location and time of year. To put this in perspective, let's visualize what these thresholds mean compared to recent averages. According to Kenya Met's own data from the past 5 years, the average maximum temperature in February for Nairobi is around 27 degrees Celsius. The new heat wave threshold of 32 degrees represents a significant 5-degree jump above that norm. In Mombasa, the average February high is about 31 degrees, making the 35-degree threshold a 4-degree surge. For Kisumu, moving from an average of 30 degrees to a threshold of 34 is also a 4-degree climb. These sustained increases are what transform heat from a nuisance into a public health emergency. The criteria also consider nighttime temperatures, as a lack of cooling relief overnight exacerbates health risks, particularly for the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions. Why is this formal definition so important now? Climate scientists point to a clear trend. While Kenya has always experienced hot periods, their frequency, intensity, and duration are increasing. Data models suggest the number of days exceeding these new thresholds could double in the next 2 decades. A formal definition allows for a coordinated response. It means county governments, the Ministry of Health, the National Disaster Management Unit, and even schools and businesses now have a clear trigger for action. When Kenya Met declares a heat wave for Nairobi, it's not just a weather report, it's a call to activate heat action plans. These can include opening public cooling centers, issuing health advisories about hydration and limiting outdoor activity, adjusting school hours, and ensuring hospitals are prepared for an influx of heat-related illnesses like heat stroke and severe dehydration. However, the announcement also raises immediate questions about preparedness. Does the infrastructure in these cities support such a coordinated response? Nairobi, for instance, has faced persistent water shortages. During a prolonged heat wave, water demand would skyrocket, potentially crippling the supply system. In informal settlements where housing materials like corrugated iron can turn homes into ovens, the risks are exponentially higher. Archbishop Anthony Muhiria, vice chairman of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, recently highlighted systemic challenges in a different sector, education, that reflect a broader pattern of planning gaps. While criticizing the government over the confusion in admitting grade 10 learners, Muhiria pointed to a mess in the education sector, where directives, like President William Ruto's order for schools to admit students regardless of fees, are issued without clear implementation frameworks. This creates a parallel concern. Will heat wave responses be well-planned directives or add to a list of poorly executed top-down orders? The need for clear, funded, and locally adaptable action plans is paramount. Shifting our focus from domestic policy to international controversy, a disturbing report from The Guardian Africa reveals a crisis facing some Kenyan men abroad, which underscores the vulnerabilities that economic desperation can create. The investigation details how African men, including Kenyans, have been tricked into fighting for Russia and Ukraine. They are lured by false online job adverts promising work as plumbers, welders, or drivers with attractive salaries. Stephen Odier's story is tragically representative. After months of unemployment in Kenya, he believed he was heading to St. Petersburg for a plumbing job last August. Upon arrival, his passport was confiscated, and he and 6 other Kenyans were effectively imprisoned before being forced into military training. This is not a case of voluntary mercenary work. It is deception and coercion on an international scale. While the exact numbers are difficult to verify, reports suggest several hundred Africans from Kenya, Nigeria, and other nations may have been ensnared in this scheme. The Kenyan government has stated it is investigating, but for families like Oduors, the wait for answers is agonizing, and the danger is mortal. This international issue connects back to domestic pressures. High unemployment, particularly among skilled and unskilled youth, creates a pool of individuals desperate for opportunity, making them susceptible to sophisticated online scams. When legitimate pathways for economic advancement seem blocked, the allure of a foreign job offer, even one that seems too good to be true, can override caution. It presents a grim paradox. While one government department is working to protect citizens from climate threats at home, citizens abroad are falling prey to man-made threats stemming from the same root causes of economic insecurity. The situation demands a two-pronged response: vigorous diplomatic action to secure the return and safety of these men, and a renewed domestic focus on job creation and public awareness about the tactics of human traffickers and fraudulent recruiters. Returning to the heat wave criteria, let's consider the economic implications. Agriculture, a cornerstone of Kenya's economy, is intensely vulnerable to prolonged heat. The new definitions will help farmers and agricultural boards anticipate and mitigate losses. For example, a forecasted heat wave in Kisumu could trigger advisories for rice farmers about water management or for dairy farmers about heat stress in livestock. The tourism sector, vital for Mombasa and Nairobi, also faces impacts. Extreme heat can deter visitors and strain resort resources like water and power. Energy demand for cooling will spike, testing the national grid. These cascading effects show that a heat wave is not just an environmental event, but a macroeconomic shock. Proactive alerts based on clear criteria give businesses, from smallholder farms to large hotels, a critical window to prepare, potentially saving millions in losses. In the realm of global politics, the term Met often evokes very different institutions, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York or the Metropolitan Opera. These are centers of culture and soft power. The work of the Kenya Meteorological Department, while less glamorous, is a fundamental form of national infrastructure. In an era where climate change is the defining global challenge, the ability to accurately predict, define, and warn against extreme weather is a critical component of national security and sovereignty. It represents a nation taking control of its own narrative and safety in the face of a global problem. This stands in stark contrast to the image of Kenyan citizens being used as pawns in a foreign conflict, stripped of their agency and rights. Strengthening institutions like Kenya Met is an investment in self-reliance and resilience. As we analyze these interconnected stories, a picture of modern Kenya emerges, one grappling with complex, layered challenges. On one hand, there is a push for scientific governance, as seen in the meticulous work to define heat wave parameters. This is forward-looking and technical. On the other hand, there are acute crises in education and employment that speak to immediate social pressures. And on the global stage, Kenyan citizens are caught in geopolitical crossfires. The common thread is the need for effective, transparent, and compassionate governance that protects its people from both natural and man-made dangers. The heat wave criteria are a good step. They provide clarity. But as Archbishop Muhiria's criticism implies, a good policy is only as effective as its execution. The directive must be followed by resources, public education, and accountability. Looking ahead, the next test for Kenya Met's new system will come with the next prolonged hot spell. Will the alerts be communicated effectively to every citizen in every neighborhood? Will county governments have the resources to act? The answers to these questions will determine whether this new definition saves lives or remains merely words on a page. Similarly, the resolution of the cases of Kenyans trapped in Russia will be a test of the nation's diplomatic resolve and its commitment to its citizens wherever they are. In both scenarios, the measure of success will be tangible protection for vulnerable people. In conclusion, the announcement from the Kenya Meteorological Department is more than a technical bulletin. It is a recognition of a new climate reality and a framework for survival. It empowers individuals with knowledge and obligates authorities to act. When combined with robust action on economic and educational fronts, such scientific governance can help build a more resilient Kenya, but it requires sustained focus and investment. The heat is coming in more ways than one. The question is whether we are prepared to meet it. For Kenya News Update Today, I'm your host. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today.